What is the pettiest reason you've rejected someone? I met Craig at my friend's trivia night downtown. He was smart, funny, and we had the same taste in movies and books. When he asked me out for coffee, I said yes without hesitation. The next week, we met at this cute little cafe near campus. Within 10 minutes of sitting down, I realized Craig had this habit that made my skin crawl. Every single time I spoke, he would correct me. Not in a playful way or like he was trying to help. In a, let me interrupt you mid-sentence to fix your terrible word choices kind of way. I mentioned there were less people at the cafe than usual, and he immediately jumped in with fewer people, not less people. When I told him about this movie that literally had me dying of laughter, he cut me off to say, "You didn't literally die though, that's impossible." At first I thought maybe he was just nervous, or maybe this was his weird way of flirting, but as our date went on, it got so much worse. I tried telling him about my trip to Barcelona last summer. I was excited to share the story because it was this amazing experience where I got lost in the old city and ended up finding this incredible hidden restaurant. But Craig stopped me 5 different times before I even got to the good part. He corrected my pronunciation of Barcelona, told me the proper name for the Gothic Quarter, and when I said the restaurant was literally a hole in the wall, he again reminded me that walls can't literally have holes for restaurants. By the time our coffee got cold, I felt like I was talking to a walking grammar textbook instead of an actual human being. Every conversation felt like a test I was failing. I couldn't finish a single story without him jumping in to clarify some detail I hadn't even gotten to yet. When I mentioned that the restaurant had amazing paella, he launched into this lecture about how real paella doesn't have seafood and chorizo together. The worst part was how smug he looked every time he corrected me, like he was doing me this huge favor by fixing my imperfect English. He had this little smirk that made me want to throw my latte at his face. I started talking slower and choosing my words super carefully, but that just made everything feel even more awkward and fake. When I told him about my job at the marketing company, he interrupted to explain the difference between marketing and advertising, even though I work there and obviously know what I do for a living. When I said my boss was super cool, he told me that super isn't proper grammar, and I should say very cool instead. The final straw came when I was telling him about my little sister's graduation party. I said we had so much fun, and he actually held up his hand to stop me mid-sentence. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "You mean you had a lot of fun, or a great deal of fun? So much fun is poor grammar." I sat there staring at him for a long moment, wondering if this was actually happening. Here I was, trying to share something happy about my family, and this guy was treating me like I was his English student who needed constant correction. I realized I hadn't been able to finish a single thought or story during our entire date. When the check came, I told him I didn't think this was going to work out. I tried to be nice about it, saying we just weren't compatible and that I hoped he found someone great. Craig looked genuinely confused, like he couldn't understand why anyone wouldn't want to date someone who corrected their grammar every 30 seconds. Then he did the thing that made me realize I'd dodged a massive bullet. He smirked at me again and said, "It's anywhere, not nowhere. You said you hoped I'd find someone great anywhere, but you meant nowhere specific." I hadn't even said that, but I didn't bother arguing. I just grabbed my purse, said goodbye, and walked out. As I was leaving, I heard him call after me, "It's goodbye, not bye." I didn't even turn around. 3 years later, I'm dating someone who thinks my quirky way of talking is cute, not something that needs constant fixing.